Hello and welcome to our Midday Report here on TVP World. My name is Diana Skaya. And we're focusing on the latest from the Middle East. Now, oil prices have surged dramatically as the conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran hits day 10, rattling global energy markets. The price of Brent crude, the international oil price benchmark, jumped to as high as $120 per barrel early Monday, hitting the highest level since June 2022. And markets are particularly worried about the Strait of Hormuz, a vital shipping route through which around 1/5 of the world's oil supply normally passes.
As the conflict in the Middle East deepens, energy markets are facing a scenario that until recently was considered unthinkable.
This scenario where you're seeing an existential fight by the Iranian regime is the kind of doomsday energy market scenario that has been war-gamed since the 1970s, when we had the Iranian Revolution and the Arab oil embargo creating oil price shocks.
The price of Brent crude, the international oil price benchmark, spiked to as high as $120 per barrel early Monday, hitting the highest level since June 2022. This came after prices soared nearly 30% last week. Gulf states have cut their production as Iranian strikes on energy facilities intensified, with Bahrain's Bapco oil refinery being the latest hit. And the near-total shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, where roughly 20% of the world's oil and gas passes through, means that exporters in the region, like Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE, are unable to ship their oil and gas abroad, leading to overflowing storage tanks and prompting more production cuts.
The Strait of Hormuz is probably the most important energy choke point in the global energy system. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil per day pass through the strait.
And the longer the strait is closed, the higher oil prices will likely go.
We are in a situation where it's impossible to say how long the crisis will last, but we are already seeing that 1% of supply cut means 4% in the rise of oil prices.
In an effort to stabilize the market, officials from the Group of 7 countries met in New York on Monday to discuss the release of emergency oil reserves. Initial news of the meeting caused prices to fall from their earlier highs, settling just above $100 a barrel. But not all world leaders are concerned.
Short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over, is a very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace. Only fools would think differently.
And the timing of the war's end and energy markets' return to normalcy will depend more than anyone else on the U.S. president. Maciej Wilowski for TVP World.
The conflict in the Middle East has begun to also take its toll on Central and Eastern Europe as drivers in the region face fuel prices not seen for 3 years. Although the situation is not dire here as much, the government is considering taking steps to shield the economy from further fuel price hikes.
Polls have not seen numbers like these at the fuel pump for a while. The price of diesel has reached a level not seen since 2023. To calm the mood, Orlen, the country's sole crude refiner, released a statement stressing that the numbers at the pump in Poland are pushed up by wholesale fuel prices at the most important European energy hub, Amsterdam, Rotterdam and Antwerp, also known as ARA.
We see a huge increase of diesel, something like 53% in the ARA hub, but only 21% of gas lines. So this is also very important because Europe is importing diesel mostly from Middle East and also from India.
Since Poland gets around a third of its consumed fuel from abroad, prices at local gas stations trail what's happening in Amsterdam. And it doesn't help that the country's second largest refinery is undergoing maintenance.
Right now in Europe, we are talking about something like 8 refineries which are offline. So, for example, also in Gdańsk.
The government said it is considering steps to minimize fuel price increases, but for now, no details are known. But that's not the end of the consequences. Polish assets have also taken a hit, with the Polish currency weakening against the euro to a level not seen since July, and the Polish stock exchange basically erasing the gains from this year.
Polish currency is a victim, is a clear victim of the current geopolitical situation. This risk aversion that was triggered by the war is negatively impacting assets such as the Polish zloty and Polish assets in general.
But the conflict has the biggest impact on the Polish bond market.
The yields on the 10-year treasury have jumped by almost 1 percentage point. This is a lot. This is a major move, much bigger than the one on the Polish zloty.
One thing's for sure, the following days will be eventful from an economic standpoint.
Iran has a new supreme leader. Mojtaba Khamenei has been named the successor to his father, Ali Khamenei, following a decision by Iran's Assembly of Experts, the 88-member clerical body responsible for selecting the country's supreme leader. Now, the position is the most powerful in the Islamic Republic, giving Mojtaba ultimate authority over Iran's military, foreign policy, and intelligence services. The announcement comes as the U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iran enters its second week.
Iranian state TV broadcast scenes of celebration after Mojtaba Khamenei was named the country's new supreme leader. The 56-year-old replaces his father, Ali Khamenei, who was assassinated by an American-Israeli strike on February 28th. Mojtaba's wife and one of his sons were also killed in the opening salvos.
I'm very glad. I believe he is the most deserving to lead the Shiite nation.
We are very glad that now the leader has been selected. Now we are sure that the path will continue with his leadership.
Mojtaba Khamenei had never previously held a government post, given interviews or made public speeches, but has a power base among the security forces. His appointment is a clear signal Iran's regime is still functioning and defiant, and it means the hardliners are now in control.
Not only are they saying they're going to continue this fight, at least in the short term militarily, but they're also saying politically they have a game plan. And that, as far as I can tell, in Washington should be a wake-up call, because whatever political agenda President Trump had in terms of changing Iran, right now that agenda is not happening.
President Donald Trump has demanded the installation of a compliant Iranian government and warned if a new leader doesn't get US approval, he wouldn't last long.
Meanwhile, Israeli strikes and Iranian retaliation are intensifying across the Middle East. Overnight and into Monday, Iran launched missiles and drones targeting Israel and Bahrain. An Iranian ballistic missile also entered Turkish airspace before being shot down by NATO defenses. Israel also carried out additional strikes in Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah positions in Beirut's southern suburbs.
Debris and damaged vehicles littered the streets of Bahrain's Sitra district after what authorities say was an Iranian drone strike early Monday. Residents gathered outside as the extent of the damage became visible across the neighborhood. Bahrain's Ministry of Health confirmed the attack in the Sitra area and reported injuries. Nearby, thick smoke could be seen rising from the country's Babco oil refinery. Officials said the drone strike caused damage and injuries in the area around the facility, which is Bahrain's main oil refinery and a key part of the country's energy sector. Bahrain's king, Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, condemned the attacks, calling them unjustifiable and reaffirming the kingdom's commitment to peace and regional cooperation.
These are unprecedented attacks that cannot be justified under any pretext by Iran.
In northern Israel, air raid sirens sounded across the city of Haifa as the military warned of incoming Iranian missiles. Sirens were also heard in Tel Aviv as another barrage was launched towards central Israel. Israeli authorities say at least one person was killed and several others wounded in strikes across multiple locations. In central Israel, one strike left a crater in a road near parked vehicles. Nearby cars and storefronts were damaged by the blast. Security officials have examined the impact sites and activated emergency services.
We are aware of the damage caused as a result of the explosion of these cluster munitions. At the moment, we have one injured woman who was taken to the hospital for medical treatment in moderate condition.
Elsewhere in the region, Israel carried out new attacks in Lebanon. Smoke billowed over Beirut's southern suburbs after Israeli airstrikes targeting what the military said were Hezbollah positions. Footage from the area shows collapsed buildings and widespread destruction in the aftermath of the strikes. Smoke continued to rise from damaged structures hours later. The attack comes after Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militant group, launched strikes into Israel. According to the Turkish Ministry of Defense, a ballistic missile launched from Iran entered Turkish airspace and was intercepted by NATO air defense systems. Debris fell near Gaziantep with no casualties recorded. As the fighting spreads across several countries, satellite imagery shows the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln moving through the Arabian Sea near Oman. The carrier is one of the two deployed to the region as the United States reinforces its military presence.
Now, as tensions with Iran rise, Ukraine is helping defend U.S. military bases in the Middle East. President Volodymyr Zelensky says Kyiv has sent interceptor drones and a team of specialists to Jordan after a formal request from Washington. In an interview with the New York Times, Zelensky said the United States requested help earlier this month as attacks from Iranian drones and missiles increased across the region. Now, Ukraine has significant experience countering Iranian-made Shahid drones, as Russia has used those UAVs widely in strikes on Ukrainian cities since 2022. Zelensky said Ukraine agreed to Washington's request immediately, sending specialists and equipment to strengthen defenses at U.S. installations in the Middle East. Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico says he will block EU funds for Ukraine if Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban loses the country's upcoming elections. Fico announced his plan in a video published on Facebook on Sunday, saying he would follow the approach taken by his Hungarian counterpart. Now, Hungary is currently blocking the 90 billion euro loan to Ukraine, hoping to pressure Kyiv into restarting the Druzhba pipeline, which was taken offline in January. Earlier this month, Zelensky said that repairs would take more than a month and might only be possible during a ceasefire, adding that he would prefer not to repair the pipeline at all. Slovakia and Hungary are the only remaining EU countries relying on Russia crude transported via the Druzhba pipeline. On Monday, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that Europe should efficiently deliver on its decision to support Ukraine without a green light from Budapest. Let's listen.
Viktor Orban no longer hides his fondness for President Putin and Russian politics. That is why, in the case of the 90 billion euro loan, as in many other matters, Europe must effectively enforce its decisions. Hungary has signed up for this decision. I am convinced that Europe can safely use the 90 billion for Ukraine without waiting for additional approval from Budapest. After all, I was at those meetings. Hungary accepted the decision. We will not keep coming back to this issue just because Mr. Orban is currently more favorably disposed toward Russia than Ukraine.
A hot air passenger balloon crash landed on Monday in a city in southwestern Poland. One of the 3 people on board jumped out of the basket as the balloon was descending. She did not survive the fall. Now, the tragic event unfolded shortly before 8 a.m. local time in the city of Zielona Góra. Witnesses saw a person jump out of the hot air balloon as it was rapidly descending over an apartment complex. The woman fell onto the roof of one of those buildings. First responders pronounced the woman dead on the scene. The 28-year-old victim has been identified as an award-winning member of a local flying club. The 2 other passengers remained in the basket until it touched down, emerging unscathed. And that's all for our midday report here on TVP World. My name is Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching and stay with us here for more.